So after a few years of playing Kingdom Hearts 2, my heart was really looking forward to whatever the next title was. Except the fact is that the next title was actually 358 over 2 days, which was on the Nintendo DS, which I had at the time, but didn't really pay much attention to 358. So instead, I end up picking up the next Kingdom Hearts game that will be on the PlayStation Portable, the PSP. It was essentially Sony's way of being like, hey, we have ourselves a handheld too, so if Nintendo can make one, we can too. Unfortunately, the difference between Nintendo's 3DS and DS is that the PSP only had the PlayStation Portable and the Vita. We don't really talk about the Vita, even though the Vita is actually pretty good. I've heard some very good things about it from a lot of people that just, use it for other means. Anyways, later down the road, in January 9th of 2010, Kingdom Hearts was gonna get itself another game. It was called Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, a title that would later on be called Dream Drop Distance down the road, because this title kind of does give me sort of I'm gonna be diving into people's dreams sort of feel. But no, in reality, this game was the origin story of a character known as Xehanort. Yeah, that's right, Xehanort, the guy that they just randomly dropped in Kingdom Hearts 2? Yeah, that was a pretty bombshell of a moment that just happened, but Nomura decided to create Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep to give us details of our wonderful antagonist of the series. I'm gonna just say this right now, let's see how much details they kind of give us with Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I've been Code Pika, and welcome to the next PikaView of the next Kingdom Hearts installment, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep for the PSP, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and at the time of me talking about this, soon to be on the Nintendo Switch Cloud. Oh boy. Anyways, let's begin. The story of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep tells the story of Terra, Aqua, not Roxas, Ventus, who live their lives in the land of departure. These three characters are on the verge of having their final moments together before things hit the fan. Both Terra and Aqua are training for the Mark of Mastery, which is mostly a final trial for Keyblade wielders to perform and to see who becomes Keyblade Master. Their teacher, Master Ericus, is the one performing this trial, while his old friend Master Xehanort, who end up giving him a letter after situations that I will end up talking about later on, decided to say, hey, I want to join and watch your two students. And Master Ericus is like, yeah, sure, why the hell not? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Before things can get underway, Xehanort decides to interfere with the exam by causing the light orbs to become hostile. Alright, well, okay, we're off to a good start. Ericus does absolutely nothing to stop the light orbs and just lets Terra, Aqua, and Ventus fight the orbs themselves, as followed, with both Terra and Aqua up against each other. The fight is going well, but Terra unleashes some of that stank darkness from his hands, and this makes Xehanort a very happy man. Sadly, with that being unleashed, Terra is unfortunately not able to be appointed as Keyblade Master, and that obviously goes to Aqua. This of course puts our Terra into a very sad mood, but Xehanort tells Terra it's fine, use the darkness, and that Ericus has no idea what he's talking about. And considering the fact that this game is about Xehanort's sort of origin story, it's safe to say that Terra should really trust this guy. He really should. Meanwhile, Ventus is in his room and a young masked boy enters without an invitation. He goads Ven into leaving the land of departure by telling him that Terra will be leaving as well. Both Aqua and Terra are tasked to also stop some new creatures, otherwise known as the Unversed. Unversed are mostly the heartless of Birth by Sleep, but are more so based off negative emotion. After everything is set, all three characters leave the land of departure at different times. Terra leaves first, Ventus follows, and Aqua is last, since she was also tasked to watch over Terra, and then also bring Ven back home. And this is where the game fully begins. Depending on what character you pick first, you will start out in a different world. Terra starts at the Enchanted Dominion, which is the Sleeping Beauty world. Ventus starts out in the Dwarven Woodlands, which is based off Snow White. And Aqua starts out in the Castle of Dreams, which of course is Cinderella. Birth by Sleep mostly focuses on the first Princesses of Hearts before Belle, Jasmine, and Alice comes into the mix. Since it is a starting story, how well does the storytelling for Birth by Sleep plays out? Well, aside from following the timeline, Terra mostly finishes the worlds first, while Ven follows suit. Meanwhile, Aqua is usually the last person to visit any world. There are also some returning worlds in the game as well. You have Olympus Coliseum, which does not play the same role as it did in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. It's mostly before Herc becomes the Hercules we all know and love. Another world that returns is Radiant Garden. This world mostly showcases the area before it gets taken over by the Heartless, and this is also where our young Kairi also lives. The new worlds besides the three I mentioned before are as followed. You have Disney Town, Deep Space, and Neverland. Yeah, there's not really a lot of worlds to explore. You have to remember that this is a PSP game, so they had to kind of condense the bit of worlds here and there. There was also one world that was cut, unfortunately, and that was Jungle Book. You know, you can hack the game to be able to explore this world, but there's not much in it, and it's also kind of a shame because it would have been nice to end up beating up King Louie. Oh, you're probably also wondering, is Atlantica in this game? No. Yeah, I know that one scene where King Triton says that Keyblade wielders should not be interfering into the affairs of other worlds. Yeah, they never really explained that, and hell, even in the mobile game, which I'm like just spoiling here, I don't even think they even end up exploring that aspect of that line. I don't know why that line is in there, because it made it seem like that King Triton apparently has met the three cast of characters, but not really. Also, I think the reason why they probably don't have an Atlantic world is because of Aqua, but that's besides the point. Anyways, moving on. The majority of the game does not really focus on Xehanort all that much. He mostly is in Terra's story, shows up a few times for Ventus, and only shows up once for Aqua. For a story that was trying to focus on Xehanort, it really does not show him all that much, does it? We know he's the main villain of the series, but come on, let us know a bit more about him. Before we talk about gameplay, I think we should talk about the three heroes that you will be playing in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Let's start with Terra since, well, you'll be essentially starting with him. You have to go from Terra, Ventus, and then Aqua. You'll know why after the events are being told. Terra's story focuses on being buddies with the villains in Disney Universe, while he also interacts with Xehanort. He starts out in the Enchanted Dominion where he meets Maleficent. She ends up mentioning about the Keyblade, causing Terra to end up reacting accordingly. Having some slight darkness inside him, unfortunately, he's then controlled and forced to release Princess Aurora's heart unwillingly. Terra's next world is then Castle of Dreams. Having to meet with Cinderella, he learns a bit about hope and escorts her to the ball. After finding out that Ven has left home from Aqua, he then proceeds to head to the next world, which is Dwarven Woodlands. Here, Terra plays the role as the huntsman, and is ordered by the Queen to gather Snow White's heart. Of course, Terra doesn't do it, and the Queen forces the mirror to fight Terra. After the battle, the mirror ends up answering Terra's question that he seeks, and heads to the mysterious tower. Here we get a glimpse of the apprentice, Mickey, before becoming badass Mickey in the future. Meeting with Yen Sid, who I still swear, even in the past game, he still just sits on that damn chair. Does nothing, but ends up telling Terra where Xehanort might end up being. And he's actually in the Badlands, which is where Terra goes to. He ends up meeting with Master Xehanort, where Master Xehanort mentions about the masked boy and tasks Terra to find him. Off to Radiant Garden, we join Ventus and Aqua to fight against the Trinity Armor, one of the only times that you work together with both Ventus and Aqua, except if you want to count the beginning of the game. The group ends up splitting off because of a few arguments that ends up happening, and Terra ends up going to save Master Xehanort from Braig. After unleashing a power of darkness against Braig, Terra ends up fearing that he cannot come back home because, well, he used the power of darkness. Master Xehanort ends up apporting Terra to Master Terra, because he's a good guy and he's trying to be nice. Also, the Anakin and Emperor parallels, the Star Wars is just skyrocketing with this story, isn't it? Terra then goes off to blow some steam off of Disney Town and ends up enjoying some Disney card action with Pete. After the Disney soiree, we end up heading off to the games of Olympus Coliseum, meeting up with Zack from Final Fantasy VII and Hades. Hades ends up doing his same old I want to end up manipulating a Final Fantasy character, except the origins of that actually started here, because he failed to try to take control of Terra, so he decided to take control of Zack, and Zack is kind of all controlly, and Terra has to beat him down. My favorite part about this cutscene, or I should say after the whole fight and everything, is that this cutscene is played out right here. Trust me.
You kidding? Listen to those cheers, man. You don't get to decide if you're a hero or not. They do. And they've already made up their mind.
Zack, honey? There's no one in the crowd. The crowd is like absolutely empty. Hell, I don't even know where the hell the cheering is coming from. I keep thinking that probably Phil just has like a boombox that just cheers on command. Because there's like no one here. I always love it when Kingdom Hearts says, dude, I'm here for the people. It's like that one scene in friggin' Agrabah in Kingdom Hearts 2 where Aladdin says that, man, I love Agrabah. I'm here for the stuff and the people. And I'm like, bro, there's like no one here. What people are you talking about? Even when we finish this world in KH2, there is still nobody here except for the peddler, you, and Jasmine. Genie's not even here as an NPC. That's kind of disappointing. Unless you want to count the friggin' Heartlesses people, because I'm just kind of ranting a bit, but I'm just a bit annoyed as to how many times they love to put that NPC nonsense in your brain. Anyways, at the Olympus Coliseum, we end up heading off to deep space where Terra ends up getting captured and locked up for his crimes. Except he has the Keyblade and can easily unlock his cell, which is unfortunate. He ends up joining with Jumba and finding Stitch after, trying to escape from said ship. He ends up fighting one of Jumba's experiments, beat it down, and then he ends up leaving. It's really not that long of a world, if I'm being honest with you. After that, we end up heading off to Neverland, where Terra will meet up with Captain Hook and end up putting Peter in his place. Finally, we get to beat up this boy. Wow, no, never mind, it's just a misunderstanding. It's all good. Terra ends up finding himself back in the Kingdom Hearts universe, and he ends up meeting up with both young Riku and Sora. Having a little chat with Riku, even though to be real, I'm pretty sure Riku's dad has taught Riku to never talk with strangers, but it's all good. Terra ends up giving him a little gift, the power to protect his friends, meaning the ability to wield the Keyblade in the future. It's actually one of the reasons as to why Riku can end up wielding the Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts 1. And that's really about it, because that's really the whole point of this cutscene, is to basically showcase why Riku can wield the Keyblade. You're going to see a lot of that in this game, to be honest, if you decide to play it, is that they do a lot of, this is the reason as to why a certain character can do a certain thing. I mean, I'm ignoring the majority of action sequences that they can do. It's pretty ridiculous. It really also makes no sense. After transferring the power to the young boy, Terra is contacted by Master Xehanort and is told that Ventus might end up being in trouble. Back home to the land of departure, Master Ericus is about to strike down Ventus. I should mention this, is that during the time when Ventus was basically being told by Master Xehanort to go visit Ericus, Ericus ends up having a flashback of him being attacked by Master Xehanort, which is kind of ridiculous because Master Xehanort basically said, yo, I'm sorry for putting like a bunch of marks on you and shooting you with some aura of darkness. I hope we all good, buddy, because you know what? We friends. No offense, if I was Master Ericus and you end up giving me a scar for life, I would never invite you back to my home. Like, I don't care. You just marked my face with dank darkness beams and you want me to return you the favor of making you watch my two students? What can possibly go wrong? Nothing. Nothing can go wrong. It's like, what? Nah, Master Xehanort, you all good. We just buddies. Terra's mad as Master, and he ends up throwing Ventus into a portal and ends up trying to calm his master down. Unfortunately, this causes Ericus to become weak after the battle, and then he gets taken down by Master Xehanort. Lol, shocker, loha! Thanking Terra, this allowed Master Xehanort's plans to move more forward. Even though now I'm thinking about it, why'd you have to kill Master Xehanort? Maybe it has something to do with the many friggin' reports that Nomura actually wants me to read. I can't really do it, man. You put these stinking reports, you could've just put a cutscene to explain why he wanted to do that. But whatever. Anywho, he ends up thanking Terra, and then, he ends up destroying the land of departure. It's great. So let's get this straight. Terra, in the span of 15 minutes of this entire cutscene, you managed to take out your master, get your master killed, and your home getting destroyed. You are such a good character. I love it. Okay, in all reality, as much as people give crap to Terra, I also give him crap too, because, I mean, to be honest, half of the stuff he does is kind of dumb. He does end up redeeming himself in the future. Not now, not in this game, not ever, but in the future he ends up redeeming himself. And it's unfortunate too, because that redeeming is essentially in a very, very long run. Whatever. You know, it's a good thing you technically have all the other Cage games under your belt. You kind of realize that after a while. Anyway, Xehanort ends up telling Terra to come to the Keyblade Graveyard where the last light of Ventus and Aqua will die. Gee, what a dark thing to say. Now, we're going to end up stopping here. We're going to talk about a bit of Ventus and Aqua's side of things. Ventus' story more so focuses on him looking for Terra and also making friends throughout the game. Since Ventus is indeed a pure heart kid, he's also the youngest among the trio. So he does not know much about what's going on or about himself even. During the start of the game, he was an apprentice of Master Xehanort, and he wanted to create what is known as the Keyblade. No, not the X-Blade, the Keyblade. Some call it Kai, but the meaning is still the same. And yes, that is a quote from the game. Anyways, the Keyblade can only be forged if one of pure light and darkness clash. Since Ventus is pure of light and him fighting a bunch of Neo Shadows, first time meeting them only in cutscenes, this was to try to trigger Ventus to forging the key. Xehanort sees that Ventus is too weak for his own good, so he decides to just release the boy's heart and basically kill him and make his heart into pure darkness. Of course, ripping out his heart causes Ventus to not only become comatose, but having his heart shattered. Luckily enough, a young boy ended up saving Ventus at the nick of time. And who's that young boy? Well, it's obviously Sora, because who else is it going to be? I mean, like, seriously, who else is it going to be? Having his heart shattered and becoming pure darkness caused the creation known as Vanitas to be born. Vanitas is not only the masked boy, but is also the cause of our Unversed creatures, which you find out by the end of the game. Most of Ventus' world's visits have him helping the heroes of the Disney stories, while also meeting with the organization human forms before they become nobodies. Lee, who is Axel, Isa, who is Syax, Evan, who is Vexen, Ienzo, who is Zexion, and he also ends up meeting two other characters, Dylan and Alien. No, that's not right. Alias. I don't really remember most of the names. In all honesty, most of these names really sound weird. I kind of prefer your organization names, because half of the time your human names are just weird to me. Hell, Evan almost sounds like Even, but it's not. It's Evan, but I'm like, alright, whatever, bet. Anywho, in Aqua's side of the story, who is also my favorite character, she ends up cleaning up the majority of the mess in each of the worlds. Aqua's story takes her on the journey of being the final person to finish each world. She will always be the last person to end up visiting every single world that the boys visit. The only exception is Radiant Garden, since Ventus leaves this world last. Aqua's major goal is to watch over Terra while also bringing Ventus back home. And the two times that Aqua meets up with Ventus throughout the majority of the story, she never drags the boy back. So that's great. Aqua is of course the mature person of the group. She has a bit of a mother-like and sister-like towards the group. She cares for Terra and Ventus and wishes the best for both of them. Her magic is very strong, and she's one of the most broken characters with her command finisher. During her world visits, she gets a mix of villains and hero interactions. She only meets up with Master Xehanort once, which is at the end of the game, and meets up with Vanitas 3 times throughout the story. I don't mind Aqua as a character, but her voice actress line deliveries can be up and down for me. Sometimes she presents herself...
You freak!
Sometimes she presents herself...
The darkness in their hearts overtook them.
As boring. No offense to her voice actress, she does get better throughout the series, but in Birth by Sleep, it's a roller coaster of emotions for me. Once all 3 characters made it to the final area of the game, they have their final clash with Xehanort. Terra vs. Xehanort has him fighting the old man while he uses the last amount of his power to take over Terra's body, hence why we see the man that we know today as Ansem/Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 take form. Say hello to Xehanort, a fan name that we see throughout the series. Before Xehanort can leave the area, Terra's armor wakes up and tries to take his body back with all the rage inside him. This is the super boss that was in Kingdom Hearts 2, the Lingering Will. I never went into detail with this boss because 90% of the moves he uses in Kingdom Hearts 2 are not in Birth by Sleep. Yeah, you know those flying things that you see there? Yeah, he doesn't do any of that. It's so weird because when you play Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, you're like, oh my god, it's so cool. And then you play Birth by Sleep, it's like, oh my god, I'm that guy. And then you realize how slow as balls he is, and you're like, wow, never mind, you got nerfed. What happened, bro? After the Xehanort boss fight, both Ventus and Vanitas are having a smack. After Vanitas helps Xehanort a bit with Terra, he's ordered to forge the Keyblade with Ventus, while also taking Aqua's life. Once Aqua gets knocked out by Vanitas, Ventus gets out of his ice popsicle and faces off against Vanitas. After the fight, the Keyblade is forged with Vanitas showcasing his face behind the mask in which he looks like a black-haired Sora. Now, this can be explained fairly quickly. Trust me, there's actually really an explanation for this, even though at first, to me, it didn't make any sense. So you see at the start of the game when I mentioned that, you know, Ventus' heart got pulled out and Vanitas was created. See, the thing is, Vanitas actually had no face at all. So he didn't really have like any sort of face at all, hence the reason why he was always in a mask. But once somebody, aka Sora, helped restore Ventus' heart, Vanitas' face started to take shape of the person who helped Ventus. Hence why he looks like a black-haired Sora. See, easily explained, even if it is silly. Anyways, once the Keyblade is forged, both Ventus and Vanitas fight for supremacy in their hearts. Of course, Ventus wins the fight at the cost of his heart, once again being shattered. Well, damn it. We fixed it and then it gets shattered once again. That's great. Meanwhile, I wake up to see that Ventus is unfortunately taken over by Vanitas, having her face off against him. I should also mention, Braig has a new change after the battle with Terra, and his eyes, of course, look different as well. He ends up fighting Aqua, but loses very easily. Braig is a super important character, and the game really shows that with the many camera angles and speeches. Anyways, after Aqua faces against Vanitas, the Keyblade breaks and causes half of the Keyblade graveyard to be engulfed in light, forcing both Aqua, Ventus, and Mickey to be stranded. Mickey helps the two of them and takes them to Yen Sid, and that's the end of the three-part story. Yeah, it's really odd, because the thing is that you do have to play the game obviously 3 times to end up getting to the Keyblade graveyard and also finishing the game with all 3 characters. You also get to save, which you kind of have to do if you want to unlock the final story. Once you have managed to end up completing all 3 stories, just like Sonic Adventure 1, 2, and Heroes, you end up getting the final story of the game. All 3 characters' arcs end up conjoining into this one final episode. We get Ventus' resting place, we find out that the land of departure actually becomes the Castle Oblivion thanks to Aqua, and we have one final battle with Xehanort, with Aqua's fate being unknown after the battle. So yeah, that's mostly the plot of Birth by Sleep. Everyone gets sort of a bad ending. Like, in all honesty, it's not even a good ending for any of them. Aqua gets left into the darkness for a few years, Terra's body gets taken away, and Ventus can't wake up from his almost eternal sleep. Birth by Sleep's story is of course a very different energy compared to KH1. Since this is the starting game in terms of timeline, it is very odd if you decide to play these in order, because you'll be going from this to this. Overall, there's still one more thing to talk about, and that's the secret episode. This episode is only a Final Mix exclusive, and it allows you to see the journey of what happened to Aqua after the fight with Xehanort. She's now in the realm of darkness, which is the few times we get to see this area. This is where you will encounter Heartless, which are the only enemies in this area, and you will end up encountering the unique pure-blooded Heartless known as Red Eyes. And that's pretty much the whole episode. They don't really fully develop this area until 0.2, Fragmentary of Passage. Now that we got the story done and dusted, it's time to talk about the controls of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep and how does it control compared to past games. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep feels very tanky-like, and feels like most of the characters have a bit of floaty weight to them. Sadly, with the game being on the PS4, you would think the UI would be fixed, but unfortunately the UI is kind of the same like in the PSP. The camera is pretty nice to control, and I don't really remember how you control it in the PSP, but considering the limited buttons you used to have, it was probably pretty awkward. Luckily enough, you don't really have to worry too much about off-screen enemy hits, but the Unversed will probably still hit you off-screen occasionally. It's just they are very camera shy, and they actually don't really end up attacking you unless you're looking at them. The main mechanic for Birth by Sleep, compared to KH1, Chain of Memories, and 2, is the command system. The command deck is essentially your bread and butter in the game. It's where 95% of your moves will be coming from. You start out with a few with each character, and as you find treasure chests, you gain more and more, but you're limited on how much you can equip. Each guild has a level system. Leveling up the commands allows them to cool down quicker, and you also get to meld them to get stronger. When you meld two maxed out commands, you're 100% to get the move you want. But if you want a command super early, you can take one command and whatever other to mix them up however you wish. Except you have to be warned that there's a 5 to 10% chance of ever getting the move. Hell, there can even be a 1% chance, so I hope you love resetting the game. Using commands allows you to have your characters go into what is known as the command drive. It's essentially the drive form, except you really have like not that much control over it. There are two types of drive modes. The first one you will always end up unlocking and having at the start of the game, but as you progress through the story you end up unlocking the second one, which is a more advanced version of said drive form. Command melding is the only way to get abilities as well. As you fight Unversed and gather materials, they end up dropping crystals that you can utilize in the melding process. You never know what skill you will get unless you look it up, but if you want to be random, just add any crystal and hope you get the ability you want. There's also one more thing you can do, and that is the D-Link, or otherwise known as Dimensional Link. It allows you to sort of summon friends you made along the way, hate that line, and use the pre-build commands that they have installed. When you are in D-Link mode and you're fighting Unversed, there's a slight chance that you can get a Paopu fruit, and you will end up leveling up that D-Link further. For example, if you use Mickey and max his 2 D-Link slots, you can end up getting double experience, which of course is useful for when you want to grind without taking too long. The music in Birth by Sleep is pretty good. I can't say it's overall my favorite tracks. There's only like a few tracks that I like, and I will end up admitting when I first played Birth by Sleep, I didn't really care for the OST like at all. Only barring for like a few soundtracks here, and it only took me like a few playthroughs to end up enjoying the world battle music and among everything else. The final mix content, and the reason why you probably end up buying the collection of Kingdom Hearts, is to end up enjoying the Birth by Sleep final mix extra content. There's not a lot. There's a bit here and there, but I'm gonna be honest with you, if you kinda don't really want to fight all that much, you're not gonna really get a lot of content out of Birth by Sleep's final mix. It's not like KH2 where they kind of gave you like an entire dungeon and optional super bosses at the very end. So don't really expect that. You got a few super bosses here and there, but not to the same equivalent as it was in Kingdom Hearts 2. Since you now know the story and controls, now you want to know what are the final mix content in Birth by Sleep. Well, I will say this, for a PSP game, there are a few things that you can do. Not a whole lot, but there are a few things you can do. For one thing, the Olympus Coliseum may not be the fighting arena that you know and love, but don't worry, the Mirage Arena fills that slot. Fun fact about the Mirage Arena, it was supposed to have a story plot to it with Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII, who was supposed to meet you, and it was supposed to end up having the arena have some sort of story relevance. But they took it out and decided to make it into a fighting minigame arena instead. On the PSP, you used to be able to play with 3 other players, but for whatever reason, being on the PS4 and having access to PlayStation Plus, they removed that feature and don't even allow you to play with other characters. I don't really understand that. Also, they compensated this by making the fights harder. I don't even understand how that works as a compensation, but whatever. So yeah, the arena allows you to fight a bunch of Unversed bosses, and a few unique bosses as well. In the final mix version, you get 3 extra super bosses. One is Monstro, and the other 2 are Master Ericus in his full Shogun armor, and Master Xehanort in his no heart armor. These 2 fights are really fun. The design, of course, is weird because these fights were more so developed for multiplayer, even though you could fight them alone. And like I said before, since it is on the PSP and it feels like Birth by Sleep's final mix on the PS4 kind of feels like a direct port of the PSP game, you can kind of end up seeing a bit of the camera being more focused like a PSP size and not really accommodate for the PlayStation 4, or I should say the TV. It's very jarring and very weird, and it's one of the biggest things I don't really appreciate about the Birth by Sleep final mix, is that it's just a port of the PSP version with just some slight things changed here and there. You did have super bosses in the original game, but not the amount that final mix had. For the original Birth by Sleep, you had Vanitas Remnant again, but this time he is more weaker and stronger. He's weaker as his life bar is only 1, and stronger as he only takes like a few hits just to kill you, and by a few meaning probably just 1 or 2. It really depends on how much your defense was. As an added bonus, this fight also has a gimmick, whereas if you use Cure Magic, he will copy and heal himself as well. That's always fun, right? He is easily dealt with if you utilize Ventus's Tornado and Aqua's Spinning Weave attack. You will thank me later. Now you're probably wondering, do I have a strategy for Terra? Hell no, because Terra, I don't know how to use him. So I don't feel like using him. Nor do I really know how to really beat him with Terra. But that's not the boss that's the hardest. The next boss is the mysterious I Am Badly Designed Figure boss. The mysterious figure is infamously known as the hardest boss in the series, for the wrong reasons. He has a time traveling move that heals a bit of his health if you combo him. He can cast Doom on you. He can shadow clone himself, and if caught in his mysterious figure ninja barrage, there's a chance you may get stunned and killed. He can also go invisible, which he can do early if you use a D-Link. He does not fall for Mind Square and jumps over them. There's a slight chance that he might get hit, but don't count on it. He can cast Meteor, Mega Flare, and also cast Arrow to blow all your commands away, just like Marluxia in Rechain of Memories. In the original version, the whip attack he did will always kill you because whenever a character got caught, you were unable to recover or even dodge it. There's also a weird thing that changes his battle movement depending on what commands or abilities you have equipped. So that's weird. So yeah, you can see why this boss sucks, and why after this boss, designs for every other boss in the future are slightly better. Keyword is slightly better, because I maybe haven't talked about 358, but there's literally like one boss that's badly designed. So badly designed, holy crap. Anyways, and that's kind of it for all of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Aside from some things here and there, returning back to the game is a bit tough for me. Because when I first played Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, it was difficult. I didn't know how to play the game, because after coming off of Kingdom Hearts 2, which was the only game I had after realizing that I didn't know what was the next Kingdom Hearts game, because like I said, I didn't know 358 exists, and I also didn't get Birth by Sleep until like a little bit later down the years. Hell, I didn't even know Birth by Sleep was even a thing. The only thing that you can probably tell that Birth by Sleep was a thing was the Japanese secret ending to Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, which was, like I said, in Japanese. So I didn't know that that was the upcoming title. I thought that was just KH3. Or I thought that was just Sora, Riku, and Kairi in armor. I mean, hell, that's what I thought. But we come to find out that it actually was Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Overall, aside from some aspects of how the characters act, I don't really like how most of the characters' interactions are in this game. Like, for one, these characters are obviously supposed to be friends. Like, they're supposed to be written as being friends. But the problem is that when things go bad, they never really talk it out. They always end up ignoring one another, and they never really bother to really communicate. And it's one of the most frustrating things that I have to watch. Like, I'm forced to watch the interactions between these three characters. Or I should more so say between Aqua and Terra, since they're both adults and Ventus is the young child. So it's like, why can't you two talk to each other? You two have been friends for like over the years. Ventus just showed up. So I don't understand why you guys are having this conflict and can't just communicate with each other. It's so stupid. And then they communicate at the very end of the game at the Keyblade Graveyard, and they end up basically telling Ventus that, oh, that they will protect him. And I love that Ventus' reaction is like, alright, I'm kind of done with this because we've already reached the point where things are already bad. You can't protect me in anything. Stop it. It's like, just stop it. We've already fricked up already. It's already over, alright? We done. But overall, I'd never mentioned about the command board, which is a Fortune Street game that you can play. And it's, well, I mean, just look.
That's the way.
All right. There we go. All right. Ready? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the majority of the game that you'll be doing if you decide to try to unlock everything in the Mirage Arena, because you kind of have to do that if you want to unlock all the other super bosses. It's a tedious game, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is still a game I feel that some people should give a try at least once so they can be able to have the understanding of the 3 trio, because this is a second trio that was created. Well, I should say a third, because 358 was first, and this is the third game with another set of trio. So, if you like the attachments of Terra, Aqua, and Ventus dynamic, hey, you might end up liking them in the near future. Who knows? I don't mind them, but I will still say I prefer the 358 over 2 days cast over Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, unfortunately. Even though I love Aqua as a magic user, don't really like how her characterization is in this game compared to the future, which she is significantly better. Anyways, that's it. I know this took forever, yada yada yada, you already know how it be. But hey, I end up having a bunch of other videos on the side as well. Been doing different things, trying to get something going in terms of making things for you guys. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep talk or Pika review. And I will see you guys in the next one, where we end up probably talking about 358 over 2 days. I'm not entirely sure, considering the fact that that's more so of a cutscene game, and I know I can play the game, but I'm not sure if I really want to play it like that. But we'll see where my thought process goes. Anyways, I've been Pika, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next electrifying review. See yas!